Wow, Sam, we're back. They let us back on the air. That's just ridiculous, man.
They let us. I think we impinged. Is that the word? Impinged upon the air.
Impinged is good.
Yeah. I don't think they let us anywhere. I think we just kind of let ourselves in. It's like one of those unwelcome guests to the party. But what are they going to do?
Yeah, like the dude in Seinfeld. What's that guy's name? Who just kind of crashes into shit all the time.
Oh yeah. What is his
Kramer? Not
Kramer.
What is his
Kramer?
name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what and we're like, yeah, whatever. Invite this, pretty much. Yeah,
that's right.
We're going to be here because we said so, and we really have another opportunity today to not only schmooze, but we've got like it looks like we've got an observer or a luckily victim or a participant, co-participant, or we got someone here who's ready to play with us. How did that happen?
A third party yet to be determined. Well, no, he's already been determined. But yes, third party here, Aaron Baker. Aaron Baker, wow. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm a willful participant in this.
Willful participant. I'm looking at the background. He's got this whiteboard behind him. I think he's plotting out his next takeover of the world.
Yeah, that could be. The last time that I watched a movie and then within an hour was interviewing the star of that movie was never. So, here I am. It's like, like this might as well, this could be like Dustin Hoffman, or it could be like Al Pacino, or it could be a lot of people here. But no, it's actually Aaron Baker. And I'm frankly more moved by Aaron's story than almost anything that Hoffman. I mean, you got to give Rain Man and Godfather a little edge, but not really, only because the public forces it. There's not, that is an inspiring, truly multiply tear-jerking story that I watched, and not out of sadness, but out of inspiration that Aaron created. And so thank you, both of you, actually. Wow.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the honor to be with both of you. Really.
Well, this is Sam. This is Sam facilitating. Sam, the force that he is, attracted me into his life, and we, I think we sit in a similar frequency, and anytime we can come together and share, we do. So thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Sam, why don't you give us a little bit of a formal introduction of why Aaron's with us? You're welcome, Aaron. Barry.
Aaron and I share a lot in common. He and I were both had spinal cord injuries in 1999.
That's ridiculous in its own self. Right.
Yeah.
There. You could stop right there. That's fucking insane. But keep going.
Yeah. From the very moment I met him, I was like, this is an absolute brother from another mother. I mean, we use that phrase periodically, but I really mean it with Aaron. I mean, the parallels in our lives, our philosophy, our outlook, etc., are profound and amazing. And I have deep, deep love and respect for Aaron. And Aaron. So here's the thing. When I had my spinal cord injury, November of 1999, it was kind of one of those the story's just kind of stupid, because I was in the back seat of a car. The driver was drunk. We went off a road, hit a tree, broke my back, slid across the back seat, broke my back, yada, yada. When I tell the story, it's not particularly inspiring.
Some of us don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Sam.
I kind of wish I had a cool ass story like Aaron's, because he at least was on a dirt bike. This guy was flying through the air and just happened to land wrong. And I guess it was some bad fuel. I didn't even realize that until a few days ago, Aaron, when you told me a little bit more about the story. Some bad fuel that you put into your dirt bike.
Yes, Sam, I do feel very, very fortunate that I suffered this injury doing what I loved most. So I have no regrets, and I wouldn't change a thing. Accidents happen. Yours, I think, may be a little bit more relatable for a lot of people that suffer this injury. Car accidents are very high on the list of causes. Mine, action sports, accounts for only about 6 to 9% of injuries. But I made some choices that led up to the actual accident. I was consciously forcing the day to happen. I was a young, up-and-coming professional athlete. I raced motorcycles. That's the gist of it. I was having a practice day, testing some new equipment. I needed to get out on the track and ride this motorcycle in preparation for an upcoming race. The day wasn't moving along smoothly. I was forcing things to happen. I didn't have the right gear. I didn't have the right fuel for the bike. I knew that when I grabbed this particular gas can out of the race shop, that it was old. It was bad gas, and you shouldn't use that in a high performance engine. I knew this, but I filled the tank anyways, just out of desperation to get out there and start practicing. And lo and behold, the machine ran like shit. The motorcycle was running terribly. And I continued to force it. I continued to do laps. I continued to ride even though the machine was malfunctioning. And you don't do that on a motocross track when you have to jump, 50, 80, 100 feet through the air. You need high performance. And on this one particular section of the racetrack, the engine malfunctioned. It effectively seized. If you know anything about an engine, when the piston seizes in the engine, it stops running. And at a very crucial part of a launch ramp, of a jump. And the physics of that, the effect was that I was flung over the handlebars 80 feet through the air and had plenty of time to think to myself what was happening. I'd crashed like that before, and so I knew instinctively to tuck and roll, but my fear was that falling from that high, I was going to land on my feet and break the long bones in my body, the femur. So that's what was actually in my mind, is I didn't want to break my femur.
Oh, shit.
Because I had actually just seen that just a couple weeks before. I watched a friend of mine suffer a femur.
Oh, man, that's a little ironic. I don't know if ironic is the word, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it was still vivid in my mind. It's a horrific injury. I mean, we've all seen Evel Knievel jump the fountains and crash and watch his femurs just snap. Anyhow, so with that in mind, I flew through the air and impacted the ground hands first, which didn't stop anything, and I effectively lawn darted the ground helmet first. And I heard the compression. I heard my neck snap loudly, like a gunshot, but like a wet, snapping, crunching sound, like celery or a vegetable or something. And instantaneously, guys, as you know, Sam, it's flipping the light switch. Our bodies are bioelectrical machines. And when you turn that electricity off, it goes dark. And from the chin down, my body went numb and I flailed down the backside of the jump. I remember watching my body as though it was someone else's, with no pain, flailing, slow motion, sky, ground, sky, ground, sky, ground. And I came to a stop in the dust, my hand in front of my face, my goggles filled with dirt, my visor, my helmet broken, but I was conscious. I was very aware, barely a breath. my body not inhaling, no inspiration. I think that's why a lot of people succumb to a high-level spinal cord injury without any kind of rescue, because you just stop breathing. My chest was not inhaling, my diaphragm not moving. I could not breathe. And I laid there with my hand in front of my face, and I just couldn't move a muscle, staring at my hand. There was a rock, a stone, that was right next to my hand. And there was an immediate recognition of connectivity. There was no difference between me and that stone. If I was left unmoved, I would remain unmoved indefinitely, like that stone. And shock started to settle in, overwhelming, hard to process. Fear just enveloped me. And at that moment, people rushed to my aid, those that were around. And again, instinctively, I was able to just, with barely the breath in my body, instruct them, please don't touch me. I broke my neck. Call a paramedic. Get a helicopter. I knew that I was in a grave situation. And when the paramedics arrived on scene, I again instructed them, I know my neck is broken. Just stabilize me. And they rushed me to the hospital. I don't know the time frame. It all seemed to happen quick. It all seemed to be an eternity. It was all melding together. It was, it's hard to explain, but it's scary as hell. And I was very fortunate to have been admitted into a local hospital, and a team of neurosurgeons rallied around me quickly. They poked me all around my body. I remember this distinctly. They were using a pin, a needle, to try to gauge where my sensory connections were, to determine how severe an injury prior to an MRI. And I couldn't feel anything from below the neck, except one small spot on the bottom of my left heel. I winced in recognition. And at that moment, the room erupted in chaos. My helmet was then tugged off my body, which was so scary because I could feel that my head wasn't connected. So as they're pulling this helmet off my head, it felt as though my skull was detaching from my spine. Cut off all my clothing, rushed me into MRI, and that's it. My last thought was, damn, they took my helmet off. And I awoke a few days later in a rotating hospital bed, a bed that rotates side to side, which is one to change the pressure. Sam, as you know, pressure builds up in bone gland marks. You can create decubitus ulcers or pressure sores. But two, and more importantly, was a high-level spinal cord injury. A secondary complication is pneumonia. The fluid builds up in the lungs, and I couldn't clear it. I was on a ventilator. I was intubated. And so the rotating bed is meant to keep that fluid moving in the body. And that's what I remember. Not being able to speak, intubated, feeding tube, completely immobile, fused my spine. They had fused my spine anteriorly on the front with a titanium plate and 5 metal screws. And they used bone from a cadaver to rebuild C5. So I effectively broke C4, shattered C5, and fractured C6. They fused all three together, rebuilt 5, and I awoke completely immobile. And the prognosis that came through the room, filtered by my mother, thankfully, was that I had a 1 in a million chance of ever feeding myself. I was a complete quadriplegic, paralyzed from the chin down. And upon receiving that news, I basically, in my mind, I'm flipping the bird, like, fuck you. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of doing. You can't You can't look into the future and tell me how my life is going to be. That's what I was feeling. And my mom actually vocalized that and ushered the doctors and the neurosurgeon out of the room. Said, don't tell my son this. This is not how it's going to be. You can come in here and speak clinically about the procedure. You can talk about complications. You can talk technically about, spinal cord injury, but don't play God. And don't plant this seed of hopelessness in him. That's how we started.
Tell us where your mom got that will.
She's an Indian, man. She's got that Cherokee and Comanche blood. She doesn't do well with authority. She is a force in and of herself. She's a world traveler. She's a woman that has raised my sister and me single-handedly in a special part of the world up in Monterey Bay, Carmel, nestled on the coast. She was an importer and a world traveler, and she took us around at a really young age and exposed us to parts of the world, culture and diversity and spirituality, and a lot of stuff that at the time I was oblivious to. But as a young man, those seeds began to take root and then blossom.
Well, I truly, your story is extraordinary, and you know that, and I really am moved by the the presence for which you tell it, rather than any kind of scripted nature. There's you reliving it. We get to be here as you walk through that again, even though this is far from your first time telling the story in a various way. So I'm really moved by really watching and being, and having just watched the movie this afternoon, also sort of seeing you as that kid doing that, and who you got to be. And I'm going to say something, this is the second time actually in 12 episodes. This is the second time that Sam and I have had the pleasure or the honor of being with someone who was paralyzed and paraplegic. Jared was here a few weeks ago.
We covered flatulence,
and we covered
mainly.
We covered flatulence. And it was really an important issue, and I wouldn't mind going back there. Except what we have here is, I want to let you guys know that the listener, I'm moved to awe, and then I'm left with some sort of weird experience of, is there even anything that I can say that keeps the value of what you're saying on the table from merely one who still is, mobile, still has legs at work, or, and then you see, here's the thing. There's like a shame or a blame, a self-blame. Like, I don't got no fucking problems. Are you kidding? There's that, which you guys have both heard, you both heard that all the time. You're like, wow, it puts all of our problems into perspective. So then now I think I have all my problems, including the ones that have me fully, desperately hopeless, have no bearing supposedly in your presence. So I'm also left with this weird feeling like, wow, my troubles don't add up. So I wanted to say that's like a natural experience from one who is still locomoting with my legs. And then there's like an honor. And then somehow there's like, if I allow myself to be this human that all three of us are, there is a tremendous amount of capacity to relate, even though that accident didn't happen to me. Mm-hmm. Now, as it turns out, I've had massive traumas. I've rolled a couple cars. I was pretty sure that when that baby was done, I'm dead. I mean, and that doesn't even separate me from people who haven't had near-death experiences. There is a relatability to sort of the magic of being on the other side of an imperceivable problem, like an unimaginable trauma. And now what are we going to do? Like, now who do you get to be? You can be emblematic, you can be a leader of a tribe. You can, you can find a way to give up. You can just sit and get stoned. You can become evil. You can be on lots of drugs. You could do all sorts of stuff, lots of medications. And what I'm told Alexandra, who's my wife, Erin, what I told her before this interview was, I've been very lucky in my life, and recently been dealing with a lot of people who are famous, like people that a lot of people know. I've been having these conversations with, and there's something about the two of you. It's like, oh, but these might be like two of the coolest people or two of the most interesting people that I've ever met. And what is it about that? It's something like you are not your physical self, or as Sam has put it, or, Sam is like the least handicapped person I know. I say what earnestly.
Physically, at least.
The level, it's almost like inside of the access that was created for Sam in 1999 comes freedom that is unimaginable from us mere quadrupeds. Anyways, thanks for letting me at least put out that, because there's some sort of discomfort too. Like, am I even allowed to own this space in the presence of the two of you? And I just want to get that I'm sure I'm representing.
Let me pop in on that.
Yeah.
I want to hear Aaron's thoughts on this too. I think it's a fantastic inquiry, Fred.
I do too.
I was watching the documentary about Val Kilmer last night.
I just saw it.
You just saw that too?
Yeah, I just watched it.
Yeah. There's a scene where Val Kilmer is in Juilliard, and he is he's playing out some scene from Hamlet, and his teacher's watching him, and it's the scene where the guy is considering suicide, and his body is shaking. Val's playing it in a way where he's physically shaking in this very sort of awkward way. And the teacher says, "What was with all the shaking?" And Val says, "Well, I'm acting out something that I don't know. I've never had this personal experience of being on the verge of suicide, but I'm imagining what this would feel like, and I'm letting that move through my body as I imagine it." And his teacher was basically like, "Fuck you. You don't give me that bullshit." He says, everyone has had those thoughts. Everyone has had that experience. And he says, no, really, I haven't had that experience. And he says, if you're going to be an actor, you have to get that you have had that experience. It may not have been consciously, but you have the experience inside of you. That experience exists inside of you. All experiences exist inside of you. The infinite consciousness of all experience exists inside of you. You may not be consciously aware of it, but you can access it. And so that really stuck out to me. I'd never heard an acting teacher say that before, but I act myself, and I've been able to slip into roles really easily. And I've always kind of wondered about that. What is that? Why can I just slip into a role really easily? And I get that there's a sort of a plasticity to my awareness where I can just become something else if I just feel it. And so there's something here that I want to share related to that, because yes, on the one hand, you haven't experienced this particular type of trauma of having a spinal cord injury. And yet, at the same time, I wouldn't let that hold you back from letting yourself experience it internally versus having your ego create a separation and say, oh, this is me. This has been my conscious experience. This is them. This has been their experience. one can't compare one experience with another sort of thing, which would be the easy way to sort of to find a discernment of one individual experience versus another and a comparison and say, well, I just can't compare my own experience to that. And I would respond in a very similar way to Val Kilmer's acting teacher. Sure, you can. Sure, you can. We all can. We've all been all things. We can all experience all things. It's simply being aware that while it might not be familiar to the conscious mind, there's parts of us as human beings that can relate to all experiences. And that's what's so beautiful about acting, is that it shows people putting on the shoes of another's experience and empathically being that character, being that other human being. And so that's an angle that I wanted to share. Feels relevant. Aaron, I'd be curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I love that you referenced that, because that too stuck out to me. I was quite taken aback actually when watching that scene, and you told that really well, Sam. And spot on. That was great.
Fresh in my mind. Just saw it
Fred,
last night.
I appreciate you bringing that up and sharing. I mean, your vulnerability right there. I quite frankly think that the spinal cord injury cuts through the bullshit and allows me to handle adversity and the difficulties of my mind much better than, say, a fully functioning, unaffected individual. I think had I not suffered this injury, I would have been gone long ago, just by my own making, my own mental instability and ability to handle this ride. So I admire men like yourself that are just that sensitive and at this phase of life. I mean, you're well into this, and you are riding this adventure well, and being so willing to engage individuals like Sam and myself, and to listen and to try to understand this kind of adversity, and then somehow, apply it to your own ride. But I think, my injury, I'm grateful for the challenges, because I told Sam, it keeps your nose in the shit. Like, it keeps you grounded and really focused on what's important in life. And, I lead, my mantra is gratitude. I thank my body. I thank every cell. I thank every breath, because I've lost my breath. That's what I didn't tell you, is 6 days after my prognosis, I succumbed to pneumonia. And I vividly remember the disillusion. I remember the merging. I remember the connectedness to the vast expanse, to I am you.
Yeah.
Religion, philosophy, all these ideas, all these concepts, like, I experienced it all in that one final exhale.
There was a point. Yeah. So, well, are you the same? Who's older out of the two of you?
Sam by a couple years.
A little bit older.
Right. So there was a point with my first accident. My first accident took place, the first of two death-defying accidents, took place in September of 2002. And it had to happen. I mean, it was just had to happen. It was totally what was next on the list, was for me to be in that accident. And retrospectively, that's what it was. It was a head-on car collision. I fell asleep, full scale, 5:30 in the morning, and, woke up, woke up with the airbag deployed and me looking out over a cliff. And wondering if I was still alive. And then I had another experience 8 years later that was similar enough. My goodness. And there's something like it was like, the second incident had the 7 seconds that you're talking about. The second incident, I was rolling into the trees at 90 miles an hour. And I knew that I was, and I knew it was over. And it was like, shit, I thought I had something else to do here. And then it was like, I hope my kids are okay. Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. All right. Bye for now. And then waking up, and the first thing I had to do was feel to see if I still had a face. The experience on the other side of these things, my curiosity was when watching your movie today, Aaron, and on my ongoing, growing, wonderful relationship with Sam, is that, at that moment, you have to make a decision of what you're going to do. Like, it's maybe not at that moment, but at some point you develop some momentum. Like, okay, I'm going to kick some ass now. I'm going to be Sam Morris. I'm going to be Aaron Baker. I'm going to do this. What is that? Where does that come from? What is that life force that has you standing up to, yep, suicide looks interesting, not today. What is it that, yeah, I get it. I got, I'm toast, not today. What is it that has you win those games every day so that I have the honor to be in this conversation with you on August 23rd, 2021? Difficult times out there, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah. When you get right down to that edge, right? The edge of the abyss, if you can actually look over it and contemplate that next step, because it's only that step that's left. There are no other choices. There are no other decisions to be made except one. And you've got to be willing to sit there for a minute and accept that you take that final leap, which I've sat at that ledge plenty of times to know that it is final, that I don't need to do that. I want to do that. Everything hurts. I'm in a lot of pain. Like, there are plenty of reasons why I could just take that next step. But there are a million others why I shouldn't. And life is so miraculous. It is so magical. Zoom way the fuck out and look at this blue marble and look at the fleeting moment we have on it and think, I'm going to be gone anyways in a handful of years, so I need to just pull back, put my hands up, quit struggling, and just stay present. Take another breath into this body. However this body is, I am conscious, I am aware, I'm alive and grateful. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, I'm listening to the birds. I am just feeling this force. And that is intoxicating. It can be overwhelming, and it can be enough to push me back away from that black abyss. Because the black abyss is just black. That's it. The rest of it's technicolor. The rest of it is just, it is what you manifest. It's magic, man. So, that's how I do it. Every time I'm hurting and I want to give up, and that's a kind of just a normal human sequence of thoughts and feelings, emotions. I pull back, and now I look at my daughter. Now I look at the eyes of my mother, just like I look deeply into the eyes of my grandmother at my bedside. Like the universe is in those moments, and I get to experience that. So I'm going to just do as much of that as I can, squeeze the hell out of it until I don't have the choice. Right now, I've got the choice.
There seems to be something about extreme trauma, which when you don't go the direction of being consumed by it, and you do still, you're not in denial either. At least I'll speak from my personal experience. You're not in denial of the trauma, nor are you being consumed by it. And you have those moments, you have those dark moments, and they certainly come. There's almost an absence of ambiguity that begins to emerge of the why am I alive? Why am I doing all of this? It seems to sort of focus the clarity a little bit. For me, that's been my experience. Sort of crystallizes things a little bit more. Okay, if things are going to be this damn challenging, and if I could just basically just as easily just decide not to do this, then my reason for why to do this becomes even more honed, even more crystallized. It's like, as long as I'm here, I might as well do this my way. As long as I'm here, I might as well really tap into this essence of who I am as much as I possibly can in this short period of time that we call life or an incarnation. There's something to that. And I think there's also something to the relationship between what I'm talking about here. Hopefully Fred's camera comes back on. Fred, you still with us, buddy? Oh, there you are. There's a relationship, I feel, between that intentionality and the intentionality of movement. I want to create a bridge here because, Aaron, something that I was really struck with, again, last time we hung out, is when we got on the conversation about every movement that you make with your body, your brain has to tell your body to make that movement. There are no unconscious movements. Your brain has to direct the movements. And so there's something about that, moment by moment, if your brain is directing your movements, and if life itself really is a series of movements, then there's a consciousness being brought to the why, to even moving through space physically. There's a conscious awareness in that. Whereas it's very easy to just move from patterns, both physically and mentally. Patterns of relationships with one's environment, patterns of relationships with one's family, patterns and relationships with one's career. We can easily get patterned into just moving in an unconscious way through our environment and through our world. But when the body and mind are forced to slow down and every movement has to take conscious direction, if I'm bringing my wheelchair into a small space, I have to navigate that space and I have to notice every little thing, every little movement that my hand makes on the wheel of the chair to be able to navigate into and out of that space effectively and gracefully. And you, Aaron, have that even more because of the fact that your upper body is also, limited in movement. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you.
Let me pipe something in from the peanut gallery here a little bit about this, because there's something about what you're saying. Sam, you and I have spoken to this a little bit in other settings. Sometimes, it's like, let me close my eyes so I can see. Or let me shut my ears so I can listen. Let me sit so I can feel. Like it's almost a distraction to use our bodily three-dimensional senses to claim that we're seeing or feeling or even hearing or smelling or tasting anything. It's like what I hear you saying, and I can only imagine it, is, well, it's not true that I can only imagine it. I'm part of it too. Is that there is almost a liberation in what's now called for, which is a greater sense of intentionality, for instance, in all of your movements. Like your next move actually took some premeditation, while it's highly likely that mine or us, you know, quadrupeds or what do you want to call us still walking ones, have, we built some sort of pattern, some sort of just automaticity in how we move. But for you, like in order to get up and, or in order to, to take a step, let alone 10,000 steps a day in 127-degree heat, it's a new world out there. Like there's something that seems really potentially extraordinary, liberating and freeing to be left with that. And my God, does that sound sacrilegious to suggest that? It's like, oh, Fred, man, what? Like you guys got it better than me? Am I allowed to even like you got to you're closer to God? You're closer to what it is to be a human? Maybe. I don't know. It just, again, speaking from the peanut gallery, I just wanted to get that in before we hear what Aaron has to say to this.
I don't think we're closer to God. I think it's just enduring suffering.
Yeah.
Right? We all do. It's between our ears. That's the suffering. The root of it is what we can see and get stuck, these loops, these patterns. But Sam, my experience with the why is a little bit different. My near-death experience completely obliterated why. I've never asked that question. I think that was part of my aided in my success. Is a lot of people get bogged down in paralysis by analysis, trying to uncover or determine a why. I need to know, and the universe doesn't give a shit. It has no answers. Our answers are what we determine them to be.
Yeah.
There was no why, rhyme, or reason to any of it. And when I sat in that space and didn't pine or suffer because I needed to have an answer, then I was liberated. That's the liberty. Then I could just move. Then I just became kinetic. And I began to connect with the patterns. I am the pattern. Like I'm now flowing with it, and I'm not fighting it or trying to mold it to my will. I am just
flow. It feels it's like flow.
Right? I mean, flow state. I mean, you can get into these modern terms. Trying to, when you're in that space, it's powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're an athlete, if you're a creator, if you're an artist, if you're whatever, when you're in that space without thought, without analysis, and you are just whatever it is you are intending, then that's the magic.
This speaks to something that I think is a rare and valuable insight. In Buddhism, there's a lot of talk about the teaching, the main teaching being letting go of attachment to things that are impermanent. And when we think about things like, if I'm attached to my car, I'm attached to my house, attached to my possessions and so forth, and those attachments are creating suffering, then of course it's pretty easy to see the relationship between the attachment and the suffering that the suffering causes. But what you're speaking to here is that even the attachment to feeling like life must have some sort of meaning, that's a more subtle and insidious attachment. And in that space that you entered, you were letting go of even having that. There's a lot of talk these days, in the personal development world, a lot of talk about what's your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you alive? What's your purpose? Why this? Why that? And you're saying it doesn't matter. Let go of even having the question. There is no why. You're not going to get any answers from that unless you're just creating another story. Let go of that story too. And just show up and just be without any kind of story or any need to have any sort of answer to anything. It's like your system naturally solved the riddle.
My system reset.
Mm-hmm.
I became the eyes of a child.
Mm-hmm.
Just wondrous. It's more how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I already have those answers in me if I am still enough. And when you're completely paralyzed, you're pretty still.
So it's one thing to have that space of pure, innocent awareness. It's a whole other thing to have that pure, innocent awareness and decide that you're going to walk across the base of Death Valley. Take us a little bit on the journey from I'm a total innocent baby. I don't need to have a why. I don't have a why, etc. I'm in the place of pure divine presence. Now I want to walk across the base of Death Valley.
Okay, but before you do there, let me land this one here too, because I got a little space in between. So about 5 years ago, I had quit medicine again. It was 2016. I had quit medicine for the third or fourth time. Never. I'm not going back to that shit, I said. And I'd quit my woman. We weren't going to do it. It was great, and it just wasn't going to work out. I quit Sacramento in California. I'd, sold my car, and I went for it down in Arizona at a sort of an ashram kind of permaculture joint. And I lasted for a little while, 7 or 10 days. And then I got tossed out by nature. And I now was left alone. And I didn't know how the fuck I was even going to get out of Southern Arizona at all. So I somehow got to the airport, rented a car, and talked to my then best friend, John, who I sure hope he's doing well. He's awesome. I'm going to call him later. He's like, dude, you got to go to Death Valley. So this was the first of 3 trips I have taken to Death Valley in the last 5 years. And it was August. And I had every intention of going there on the same context that we're kind of brushing up against. Like I'm going to the lowest place in the world, or the lowest place in the United States anyway. By the way, after that, I went to the Dead Sea because I even had to get lower. There was something about the banality and the grounding and the 127-degree heat right there in my car that was extraordinary. And when you walk through this space, what's it called? Furnace something or other. I forgot the name of it. They have cool names of the little villages in Death Valley, and I forget them for now. It's like, oh, I remember this heat, and I thought I did it, and I stayed in my fucking rent-a-car most of the time. I got out for a little 10-minute, wear your hat and be careful moments. But dude, 10,000 steps a day, completely paralyzed, alone with some sort of camera person or something.
I did have my friend, who's a filmmaker and adventure athlete. You know, when I conceived this concept of for this expedition, I approached him first because I knew that I needed to be smart about this. I mean, this is risking my life. Very dangerous out there for anybody, let
Yeah.
alone, you know, someone with my condition, high level spinal cord injury. Yes, I can walk slowly, deliberately, but there are a lot of other complications like I can't thermoregulate, so I don't sweat very well. My internal core temperature can rise, become life threatening. You know, there are a lot of issues that I have to deal with and manage. So entering a place like Death Valley, I need to be calculated, be smart about it. So I approached him, and one, as just a support guy, just be there in the event I need you, you know, help usher me out of the desert if I collapse. Uh, and he agreed. He was on board, and he said, "Let me just point a camera at you. I'll be, you know, behind the scenes. You won't even know I'm there. Just do your thing, and I'll move around you." And that's essentially what he did. But the idea of the walk through Death Valley was a walkabout. It was to test my mettle. It was to test myself, to go out and to relinquish all the trappings and just get out there and completely ground to the earth, under the stars, under my own energy and ability, and to just see how far I could go. I didn't wrap my head around the magnitude of it because then I wouldn't have even started. Um, Sam, you know, you brought it up just a moment ago. You know, like why would I go there and how would I actually make that happen when I can barely walk across my house, right? But that's kind of my mindset, a childlike mindset. When I'm watching my daughter right now learn to crawl, she wants to get to the other side of the room, and she's focused on one tiny little movement at a time. And if I can make one tiny little movement, who says I can't make 10,000 of those tiny little movements? But not think at 10,000. Just focus right here on this movement and make this movement count. And I stack that one step on top of a second step. And those are my best 2 steps. I've got another one. That's 3. Then I get to 10. And these are very conscious, very calculated, very grateful steps. And then when I stay right there, focused in that space, I am completely alive. All my body processes are on fire. I am literally on the edge of life and death, and it is a very powerful space to experience. And so I'm like playing this little game with myself of survival, management, and complete awareness. Like everything is clicked on. Like I said earlier, when the spinal cord happens, everything's switched off. Well, I am intentionally turning it all on and then turning it all up so that I can experience life, like really fucking experience it. We're all soft pansies, man. We're insulated from the reality of like life. So I go there and I want to feel this ride is really all about. So I put myself on purpose in these places of aliveness. And that's why I went to Death Valley. And I went as long and as hard as I could, but not like I wasn't forcing it. I was just guiding.
This piece around if you had considered the magnitude of what you were taking on, you never would have done it. I mean, there's profound wisdom in what you just said, because I think every human being can relate to this, especially those who have big goals in their lives and feel like, you know what, man, that goal just feels so impossible. I don't even know where to start. And so they don't start. They don't take that next step.
We're all paralyzed by that, Sam.
Absolutely.
We want comfort. We want security. We want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't answer, the who we are, where we're going questions. If we think too big, we get scared as hell, and you won't take a single step. Those little bubbles of familiarity are comfortable, and that's what I mean. We're insulated. We're comfortable. We stay with what we know, and anything beyond that is way too much to consider.
And this relates to everything from addicts who are dealing with a drug or alcohol or sex or whatever gambling issue. This is 100% one day at a time. Don't just assume that, that the problem is just going to go away, because that's too big. It's too big to imagine. Just take one day at a time. This applies to goal setting when you have a big, hairy, audacious goal, bringing it back to just one moment after the next, and stop focusing on the goal and focus on what you can do right now in this moment. What can you do? You can take that one gritty step. There's something about the grit and the presence to that. Like your steps, because they all had to be so intentional, there's such a grit and presence and awareness to each one of those steps. So it's really inspiring to look at, for anyone listening to this or watching this, and you're thinking about, I want to achieve some big goal. Well, take that one gritty step, really sinking your teeth into it right now, and then sink your teeth into the next step and the next one and the next one, and forget all about the goal. Just keep sinking your teeth into the next step.
That's it. They all count. They all stack like Legos. Each one matters. And if you can just celebrate that and not be too overzealous, then you start to feel, at least I do, I feel accomplished. I try to just control my controllables. Recognize that process is the progress.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if all I do today is just one, whatever that step is, and be happy that I've done that.
It's like Alan Watts said, you don't listen to a symphony so that you can hear the final note. You listen to a symphony so that you can be in that symphony, in that progression of that music. And people tend to be focused on what the final note's going to sound like.
And that's what we are. We're the conductors of that symphony.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are coming up on an hour, it seems, and it's we haven't even talked about flatulence yet, and I was kind of interested in getting a greater consensus on paraplegic farting and what kind of experience that is subjectively. And I think this is as good a time as any to interject that idea. It seems like it's in the flow state. It is about flowing. Gas, the gases matter. We talked, Aaron, Jared and Sam were running some shit by me about, sort of the levitation that sometimes takes, the whole strategy of farting from a wheelchair.
Like when you lift up out of the chair.
Yeah. Or when little lift or Sam talked about how sometimes he takes one for the team, like he says, that must have been me, or something like He doesn't know. He has no idea, but he just kind of owns the fart when the women are in the room and don't want to own it. He's like, no worries. That must have been me. Any thoughts about where does farting fit into all the highfalutin stuff you've been pointing at, reason to live and all that other crazy stuff?
Farting, man, it's a glorious day when my bowels are passing gas.
That's what I'm talking about.
I have a neurogenic bowel, and so it doesn't operate at 100%. It probably operates at maybe 40%. I'm suppository dependent, TMI, that's what stimulates my bowel to release. And so I have a program, every other day. I'm timed out, and that's how I manage that.
Good so old magic bullet.
Passing, the magic bullet. The gas can get impacted. I become uncomfortably bloated. It can cause pressure headaches. It's very uncomfortable. It makes me have a distended belly, and I can go into autonomic dysreflexia, which is a complication. Blood pressure fluctuations. So it hurts. So when I can fart,
it's a good day. Yeah.
Yeah, let it happen.
Yeah. Did you ever take one for the team in a crowd? Did you ever not sure if it was you, but then you actually just said it was you so that you could ease the embarrassment or shame that someone in the room would have to take if they would admit it was them who farted in public?
No, I just call them out.
You just call them out. I could see where
I can do better than that.
Yeah. I could see. That makes sense.
We're all human, man. It's better out than in.
I hear you on that. Wow. All right. Well, where else to go? It seems like we could get going in a number of directions. And I want to thank you both for, suicide and end of life issues and near-death experiences and despair and depression and anxiety and concern and why and, being called wrong for thoughts or being different. That's just everyday material for being a psychiatrist in the last 30-something years. And then there's my own personal experience, which I just shared with Sam a couple hours ago, in a pretty emotional phone call, which is, that I can go from 0 to 100 and back to 0 in my own life in the same day. Sure. I can go to full scale despair. I don't simply give a shit anymore. And within an hour can be completely revitalized. I can be completely reinterested in all the intricacies of this miracle life that we've been given. And then same day, I might be able to go right back down to, no, I don't think so. I think we're done. I think we're done now.
Do you think that's pretty common, Fred? I mean, for a lot of people, that kind of contrast. Because I completely relate to that. Not just because of my injury, but just because fuck the human experience.
As do I.
Kind of ebb and flow.
I don't know that everyone speaks to it, though, Aaron. That's the thing. I think instead you get called abnormal, sent to me to hospitalize you, medicated until you are lying that it's no longer occurring for you so that I can discharge you into a perpetual system that allows you to know that you're wrong to feel your vulnerable thoughts, and on and on and on. But in reality, I think we are talking about the essence of the human experience.
Yeah, it's not abnormal.
Not abnormal.
This is normal.
I think so.
I just want to see what it's going to take for me to get 5150'd by Fred. I want to see if I can actually pull that off.
I could definitely pull it off with either or both of you. All you have to do is pay me enough money. I can definitely put you in the hospital. No problem.
Oh, it's a money thing, huh?
It's only money. It's all about money. Follow the money, bro. That's how that goes. It's all about money.
Shit.
No, say another dangerous thing and see what happens. You don't even have to say that, which is what I would need to put you in the hospital. I just have to say you said it. They'll believe me.
Yeah.
That's the end of that. You don't have to say shit or do shit. You just have to be there when I say you said or did something.
That's got to be such a tempting thing for a psychiatrist. If you're sort of you're
totally
just kind of
tempting.
pissed off
Abuse
at
of
someone,
power.
you're be like, I'm a phone call away from a 5150.
On vacation.
Yep. It's abuse of power. It's always here as a possibility. It's a straight trauma, indeed.
What a lever to pull.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I say that we lay out 2 or 3, maybe 2. If you can say something, levity or a joke, and it doesn't, levity or a joke to close off in the next 5 or 10 minutes to close off this interview is what I request. Now, that doesn't mean you have to come up with one, but it looked like, Aaron, you were like, okay, I got one for that. See if you do.
I'm liking how you want to wrap this up. We're going to turn it up.
Yeah, we're going to just levity or a joke, and it can be dark as shit. It's fine to me if it's really dark or if it's, just some fart joke from elementary school, whatever works. Sam, you got one for us? Anything that could make some of us laugh?
I got one. Unless Aaron has got one. You got one, Aaron?
No, I want to see where you take this.
All right.
I'm going to play off you.
Yeah. Now that this joke is going out there to the public, I'm going to lose some of my well, no, I can't imagine that many people are actually listening to this, so I'm not worried about it. Okay.
It'll never be published.
This will never be published. All right. So there's this therapist in New York, and he's got 3 guys who are patients of his, and he invites them over to a dinner party, and he says, here are the conditions for the dinner party. Come dressed as whatever emotion you're feeling at the time. So the first guy shows up, and he's wearing a dress. And the guy opens the door, and he says, what's this? He says, I'm in distress. The guy goes, oh, that's great. All right, come on in. Come on in. Next guy comes, he knocks on the door. Therapist opens it up. The guy's got his thumb inside a pear. Says, what the hell is this? The guy says, I'm in despair. He says, okay, yeah, great. All right, come on in. Next guy comes. He knocks on the door. Guy opens it up. Guy's got his fly down, and he's got his dick in a bowl of custard. And the therapist looks at him and he says, what the hell is this? And the guy looks at him and he says, I'm fucking disgusted.
Sam, how do you follow that, dude? That's it.
That might be it. Unless you got something better than that, Aaron. You might have to surrender on that one.
White flag, man. That's it. Custard.
I'm fucking disgusted.
Oh my God.
Good man.
Well,
well, shit, guys.
What do you got? Aaron? You must have one. That can leave you for a guess. I'm gonna lay one out. It's not gonna be quite as good as Sam's, but in the same space.
I don't have anything like that. That's
right,
not.
Well, I'm gonna lay out a therapist joke too. So this dude comes in to a psychiatrist, and he's finally just, he's been having this recurrent dream. So he lies down on the couch, and the psychiatrist is like, tell me about your dream. And he says, well, I'm just walking along, and I look up, and there's always just one theme, and that is a couple of teepees. A couple of teepees are always in the theme that I can visualize. So they go through the session, and then they're done. And on the way out the door, the patient says to the doctor, "Well, do you have any idea what did you hear? Is there any diagnosis? Anything I can take?" He goes, "Well, yeah. Basically, you're too tense." That's it.
You're too tense. Oh,
that's like the PG version of the one that I just shared.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's the Detroit version.
That's
Yeah,
cute. Yeah. That's cute. Yeah.
You know, back in the day, that story got told at the dinner table when I had a family. In my second marriage, we had a blended family, so we had 4 teenagers, and the oldest one was my wife's daughter, and she liked to flip it around and give the other 3 shit, you know. So they heard that joke, and my son, who was the second, he laughed, but Rachel's sister didn't laugh. And she's like, I don't get it, which is a standard answer from a kid who's like, probably 9. And Rachel goes, you don't get it. Fractions, thinking that the joke was about 2/10, meaning 2 over 10. Which kind of became a family joke of all time when Rachel loaded up Paige with that. So,
well, that is a joke you could tell at the family dinner table. Sam's,
not
I don't know. There's another way to spin yours.
Yeah,
it depends on the family.
It depends on the family. That's right.
All right, Aaron. Anything you got to follow up? You must have something to at least a little bit levity or humorous or.
No, I just dipped my balls in the mashed potatoes.
There you go.
Didn't know this was going to be that kind of a party.
Yeah, right. Yes. You guys set it up. I'll knock them down.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's time at a 1:11. It's time to move along and somehow find purpose out there in the real world.
Anything to endorse here, Aaron? What do you want to endorse? What do you want to?
Well, I mean, at this point, I'm just available anytime. Please reach out to me. I'm Aaron Baker. Letter I, letter M, and my name at social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My website, please. I'm an open book. My book is not published yet. Soon to be, but there is the film Coming to My Senses, available on a lot of different platforms. Just Google it for free. But yeah, I'm not trying to sell anything other than share my time.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's aaronbakers@gmail.com, or is there
at Gmail? Yeah, my website is imaaronbaker.com.
Okay.
So, I'm without the apostrophe.
All right. Is that like what your hat was? Yeah.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sam, for a great and powerful interview. Really,
thank you,
really
Aaron.
Fun.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah. This has been great.
Yeah, guys.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, let's do it again. Let's say goodbye for now and hang on until the tracks close.
Oh, yeah.
And for all those of you who made it this far, and don't you have anything better to do? And anyways, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed this interview. It's really, really fun. Bye for now.